We've been waiting on this day to happen. Coach Rod and his staff have finally dropped their first depth chart for the 2025 college football season, and there are a few surprises on it, and we're going to talk about it right here on this live edition of Couz's Corner. Thank you for joining the show. If you're joining on X or Facebook or YouTube, thank you so much. If you are joining on Facebook or X, I ask that once the show's over, please come over and check out the YouTube channel at Couz's Corner. Check out all of our past work and also subscribe and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified of future videos and live streams that may not appear on the other platforms. All right, so let's go ahead. I looked at this when it first came out, did a little quick article over on the WV Sports Chat website, but I have not went through it in great detail. I did it kind of quickly, just kind of glanced at it. But what we're going to do is look at it and go over it together, right? I know that's really small on the screen, but I'll read it out to you as we go. But it starts off with and there's not as first off, there's not as many oars on here as I expected there to be. You know, we heard Rich Rod say there would be a lot of oars on it. Some positions there would be 4 or 5 oars, and that is the case, but it's not as many as I anticipated. And also, a lot of the oars are for guys who were second and third string, right? A lot of the starting positions are solidified, at least for now. We all know that can change. But starting out at wide receiver, the Z receiver, we've got Jaden Bray as projected starter, and then Preston Fox as his backup. No big surprise there. The Y receiver, which is your slot, basically, this is where we have a lot of oars. It's Rodney Gallagher III or Orrin Singleton Jr. or Gerard Bowie. So don't really know who the starter is there. It could be one of either of those three, but we've heard great things about all of those guys in press conferences. Coach Rod said they've all played well, and we've heard the receivers coach talk about how they've all played well. So I think all of those guys are good enough to help the team win. But I do expect Rodney Gallagher to have a breakout year this year. So I do think he'll probably be the first guy out there, but I expect all of those guys to get snaps, quite a few snaps, actually, at least 2 of them. Now, here's where we get into my first real surprise is the offensive line. Now, who they have listed at starter doesn't really surprise me, but what surprised me about the offensive line is there are no oars on the offensive line. It's a solid first and second string for each position. First at left tackle, you have Nick Cray projected as a starter with Michael Clay behind him, right? We have Nick Cray, who's a holdover from the Neil Brown staff. And then you have Michael Clay, who's the transfer, who came in. I believe he was one of the, it's hard to keep up with, but I think he's one of the guys who came in the spring portal window. Then at left guard, you have Walter Youngbear. No surprise there, the transfer from Tulsa who comes in with, he's played over 1,000 snaps in his career, a veteran. Behind him, you have Donovan Haslam. Then at center, you have Landon Livingston. Again, no surprise. He went to Big 12 Media Day. We've heard great things about him in the offseason. We all knew that he would probably land as a full-time starter. He had starting experience last year, or at least one game of it anyway. Behind him, you have Carson Lee, the transfer from, I believe it was Eastern Michigan, maybe Eastern Kentucky. I don't even know. But nonetheless, he also spent a little time at Mississippi State, I believe it was. Then you have right guard Kimo Makaniole, the transfer from LSU, who has played a little bit of defensive line in his career as well. His backup is Josh Isosa, another transfer from a big-time school. And then you have right tackle Tykeus Crawford, the transfer from Oklahoma. And then actually, I think he transferred from Arkansas. Then you have Malik Ogbo behind him. Then at tight end, and this is another or here. At tight end, you have Grayson Barnes or Jacob Barrick. Both of those guys, from what little bit we have heard, have had good camps. We've heard some really good things about Grayson Barnes and his ability to catch the football. Now we get into the X receiver, which is basically the other wideout. No surprise here. Cam Vaughn listed as a starter. His backup is Justin Smith-Brown or Jeff Weimer. So Justin Smith-Brown or Jeff Weimer will be the backup to Cam Vaughn. Now, here's the first player that was involved in the NCAA lawsuit, Jeff Weimer. The fact that he has only been able to practice a handful of days now, and he's in the 2 deep on this depth chart, says a lot about him. We heard Coach Roth talk about him arguably working harder than anybody else on the team, at least one of those guys that was working as hard as anybody else on the team, even though he was having to work on his own because of the eligibility questions that were looming out there for him. So very impressive. I was very high on him when they picked him up. After I watched his highlights, I knew he could be a really good player. I expect him to play a lot. Now, here's where we get to the fun stuff. Quarterback. No surprise here. We have or. We have Nico Marchiol or Jalen Henderson or Max Brown or Scotty Fox or Khalil Wilkins. No surprises. Coach Roth told us that was going to be the case. That's the case. So that's the case. So no big surprises there, just what he said. And it wouldn't surprise me. Coach Roth said we'd probably see all 5 of those guys play this year. I personally am not sure that's a good thing, but I guess we'll see. But I think we'll see at least 3 of them play against Robert Morris on Saturday. If not, probably not a great sign. But I do think we'll see at least 3 of those guys play. Now, running back, I don't think we ever questioned this, but it's Jaheim White. Here's another or. We have his backup, Clay Ash, or Sincere Bowers, or Dior Hubbard. So we don't know who the true backup is. Did they just put Clay Ash first because his name's first in the alphabet? I don't know. That's head scratching to me. But 2 names we don't see. One, Cannon Katzer, the Division II transfer who came in the spring, and then we obviously don't see Andre Devine, and we don't see Tyler Jacklich. But we didn't really expect to see, at least I didn't really expect to see Devine and Jacklich because they were so late getting to the program. They were, late coming in fall camp. But, they're not on there. And Cannon Katzer is the one who kind of surprised me a little bit. Clay Ash is a former walk-on. For him to be the first running back listed here behind Jaheim White tells me he's had a great summer workouts. He's had a great fall camp. And this young man might actually get to carry the rock a little bit this year. And I definitely expect to see him this Saturday against Robert Morris. Now, let's go ahead and stop there for a second and see if we have any let's look at the chat real quick. For those of you who are just joining, we are going over the depth chart position by position, just giving my reaction to it. Thought it'd be fun to do that. We got It's Coop in the house. We have Raven. We have Trick No Good. Thank you. We have Tosh Miller. We have Faded Scopes. Thank you, Faded Scopes. By the way, he's one of the authors over at WV Sports Chat. Go check out our work over there. He says, plot twist, Oliver Straub will be starting quarterback on Saturday. I hope not, man. I really hope not. Jersey Ears in the house says, I wonder if they left guys off the chart who are injured. That's a good point. We don't know. Now, the Big 12 is requiring an injury report now, but Coach Rod said in a press conference a few weeks ago that he probably there would be a lot of guys questionable or doubtful or probable. He's not going to give away too much on his injury reports either. So he's going to keep things close to the vest. Josh Gritchfield, Jalen Knighton is no longer on the team. He actually had some academic issues that made him ineligible. So he's not with the team, unfortunately. And Raven says, she is so excited. I am too. I cannot wait for Saturday. I don't think I've ever been this excited to see West Virginia play an FCS opponent ever. So very exciting. Real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to my sponsor, Appalachia Digital. Thank them for helping me keep the lights on here. Thank them for supporting the show and supporting us over at WV Sports Chat. They designed the WV Sports Chat website. They did a great job. Go check them out at AppalachiaDigital.com/Couz. That lets them know I sent you. And if you want a website you need worked on, or you want a website built, or you need to get found easier on Google, they can help you with all of that. So go check them out, AppalachiaDigital.com/Couz, and they will take care of you. Jersey Ear says he thinks injury reports are required for conference games. Not sure about non-conference games. Yeah, and I'm not sure either. I haven't looked that deep into it to see. But that's a great point. It might only be for the conference games. Newest says he's taking his 8-year-old little girl to her first game Saturday. That's exciting, man. That's exciting. Glad to hear that. All right, let's go ahead and jump back over to the depth chart real quick. Let's look at the defensive side of the ball. Not quite as many oars here as we had on offense, but a defensive end, Eddie Kelly Jr., the transfer from Missouri. His backup is Devin Grant, a transfer from Incarnate Word. Defensive tackle, Edward Vestaranen. No surprise there. was I think he's 2-year starter for Neil Brown. Would have been a three-year starter had it not been for his season-ending injury in Game 2 last year, which allowed him to come back this year to contribute to this team. So no surprise to see him there. And his backup is another leftover holdover rather from Neil Brown's team, and that is Asani Redwood. At nose guard, no surprise, we have Hammond Russell IV, another Neil Brown holdover. Behind him, another Neil Brown holdover, Nate Gabriel. So a lot of Neil Brown holdovers on that defensive front. The only two that aren't are the defensive ends in Eddie Kelly and Devin Grant. So it's pretty cool to see so many of those guys who stayed with the program decided to give it a shot with Zach Alley, Coach Rod, and that staff. The bandit position, we're seeing Braden Siders, no surprise there, the transfer from Wyoming. I'm really high on him. I thought he was a great pickup in the offseason. Then you have Curtis Jones Jr., a young player, only a sophomore. Behind him, who's another Neil Brown recruit. Then you have the Mike linebacker, the middle linebacker spot, going to be taken up by Reed Carrico, who transferred in last year from Ohio State. His backup is Ben Bogle, transfer from Southern Illinois. Or Ashton Woods, transfer from North Carolina, who's a sophomore or a redshirt freshman, actually. So glad to see him in that 2 deep as well. I have high hopes for him as well. He was actually a 4-star recruit going into North Carolina. The will linebacker position or weak side linebacker is Chase Wilson. And boy, have we heard a lot of good things about Chase Wilson. Coach Rod gave him the award for the hardest worker through the offseason. And, you look at his numbers that he put up at Colorado State, it's obvious he's a very good football player. He's a great leader. You can watch interviews with him. You can watch highlights of him. You can just see he's an absolute natural leader. He's going to lead that defense, I believe, this year in 2025 for Zach Alley. I'm really excited to see that young man play, but he's a transfer, as I mentioned, from Colorado State, a redshirt senior. His backup is Ben Cutter, another Neil Brown guy. The nickel/spear position, Fred Perry, no surprise there, the transfer from Jacksonville State. Many have compared him, said he could be the next Carl Joseph type at West Virginia, so I'm looking forward to seeing him play. He's a headhunter type guy out there. And his backup is Chris Filippo, who's actually a true freshman. So this is the first true freshman sighting on this depth chart, unless there's one that I passed up on the offensive side. This is the first true freshman. I'm going to go back and look at the offense to make sure I didn't overlook one, but I don't see any true freshmen in the 2 deep on the offensive side of the ball. So, no, this is the first one, Chris Filippo, nickel safety, or nickel spear, rather. Left corner, no surprise, Michael Coach Jr., arguably one of the best corners in the Big 12 this year, transferred over from Nevada. He's a senior, expected to do good things, could be our next Beanie Bishop type guy. His backup, Jordan Scruggs, who's another very talented player. I was actually thought he might be the starter at the other side, but he's actually a backup, which means this secondary could be really good. He's a redshirt senior transfer from South Alabama. Free safety, Israel Boyce, another Neil Brown holdover, a sophomore, another young player on the defensive side of the ball that we've heard great things about. His backup, Kakora Tarnu, the transfer from Jacksonville State who came in a year ago to actually play for Neil Brown. Or Derek Carter Jr., another Jacksonville State transfer. So it's 2 former Jack State guys as the backups in the 2 deep at the free safety spot. Then you go to the other safety spot where you have Darian Lewis, a transfer from Akron, a guy who the staff has really high hopes and high expectations for, another redshirt senior. A lot of veterans on this 2 deep. His backup, Justin Harrington, the second of the 4 players we see here who filed the lawsuit and was ruled eligible. Justin Harrington, the guy has only practiced a handful of days, and he's already in the 2 deep. That's how good he is. I think we'll see this young man play a lot of football. Transfer from Washington, also spent time at Oklahoma. Or, this is another or, Justin Harrington or Jordan Walker, transfer from UT Chattanooga. Right cornerback spot, Jason Chambers, a transfer from Appalachian State who followed his defensive backs coach over. We've heard great things about him, another upperclassman, another senior. And then his backup, Devontae Golden Nelson, a redshirt senior transfer from Akron. So let's go over, we'll get to specialists in a minute, special teams, but let's go ahead and talk about starting with offense, you've got redshirt senior, junior, senior, redshirt sophomore, senior, redshirt senior, redshirt junior, redshirt senior, redshirt freshman, redshirt. I mean, look at all these upperclassmen, man. A ton of upperclassmen in this two deep. That could be good for this year, but it gets me a little bit concerned about the future, about next year. Coach Rod says he doesn't plan to rebuild using the portal again. He wants to rebuild with young guys. I don't know how he's going to do that because a lot of these young guys that he's brought in so far, at least, are not in the two deep. Now, on the defense, it's a little different. You see more young guys on the two deep here. You do have so you got senior, redshirt, junior, redshirt. We have a sophomore, another sophomore, a couple redshirt freshmen, a true freshman, another sophomore. So we do see another redshirt freshman. We do see a few younger players, freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and sophomores in the two deep on the defensive side of the ball, but hardly any on the offensive side of the ball. Sincere Bowers is one, Clay Ash is one, Dior Hubbard's one. So the running back position, you've got plenty. You've got Scotty Fox and Khalil Wilkins at the quarterback spot. But, man, outside of that, Cam Vaughn. So some of your key guys, but, man, a lot of juniors and seniors in that two deep on the offensive side that are upperclassmen. But I do like the fact there are enough young guys mixed in here. You might have at least a core of guys you can build with for the future. And obviously they're going to develop the younger guys that aren't in the two deep. And hopefully by the end of the year, they'll be good enough to where you'll say, hey, these guys could have been in the two deep if they were playing today or starting the season today. Special teams, now let's go there. Kicker, Cade Hensley, a redshirt senior transfer from Coastal Carolina. His backup is Ethan Head, a transfer from Tulane, a sophomore. So, and it's expected he'll be he's the starter on doing the kickoff duties. Then we look at the holder. You've got Oliver Strahl taking over the holder duties. His backup at holder will be R.J. Koken, who I think is the backup punter, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, Oliver Strahl is the punter. No surprise there. Holdover from Neil Brown and a very good punter. Aiden Steyer is his backup out of Morgantown. And I apologize if I'm reading some of these names wrong. This is very small on my screen, and I do wear glasses for a reason. I am nearsighted, so this is not easy for me to read. Long snapper, McGuire Moss. Can he continue the trend of really good long snappers at West Virginia? We'll see. Hopefully he can. He's a redshirt junior. His backup is Caden Seller, I think's his name. And then kickoff return, we have Preston Fox, Gerard Bowie are the top two guys there. And then Preston Fox also listed as a starting punt returner to go along with, again, Gerard Bowie. So it looks like Gerard Bowie and Preston Fox will be doing most of the kickoff and punt return duties, at least in game one. We also obviously know Preston Fox is a redshirt senior. Gerard Bowie is as well, the transfer from Jack State, who previously played his high school ball at Martinsburg High School right here in the great state of West Virginia. So happy to see him. He's also one of those guys that has really balled out and shined in fall camp in that slot position. So there's your depth chart for game one. Again, a lot of oars in quarterback, a lot of oars at slot receiver position, a couple in the two deep at running back, but Jaheim White listed as a starter. And defense, really not a ton. You have one at linebacker for your second string linebacker, one for your backup free safety, and one for your backup other safety. That's really it. So not a ton of oars on the defensive side. It looks like they have their guys on the defensive side of the ball who have at least so far have kind of separated themselves. Guys like Eddie Kelly, guys like Eddie Vestarin, guys like Hammond Russell, Braden Siders. One name missing, though, from this depth chart, actually two, Jamoy Robinson, which we kind of know. Rich Rod talked today, they're still waiting to see if he's going to be eligible or not because of that academic issue. He got cleared over the eligibility JUCO issue, but there's still an issue looming out there that the NCAA is saying he's academically ineligible. He's obviously not going to be on the depth chart. They're not even sure if he'll be eligible to play. And then Ty Edwards. I forgot to mention this when mentioning the running backs. No Ty Edwards on the depth chart. Not sure why. He was ruled eligible to play, but I guess he was so far behind maybe that he just wasn't able to catch up with these other guys. But at the end of the day, this depth chart, they can always change their mind before the game. Remember, I'm recording this or doing this live show on a Tuesday night. The game is on Saturday. So this could always change. But as of right now, Ty Edwards is not in the 2 deep, but Clay Ash is, Sincere Bowers is, and Dior Hubbard is. So Cannon Katzer's not in the 2 deep. Ty Edwards is not in the 2 deep. Neither is Andre Devine or Tyler Jacklich, which those two, again, not really surprises. But I did expect to see Ty Edwards there. A little shocked to see he's not. Another name missing from it that I thought I would see is Zay Jennings. Zay Jennings was a safety last year under Neil Brown that we heard great things about. Another young player that we're hoping can grow in the program and be developed and be a long-term guy. Not in the 2 deep. I thought we'd see him as at least a backup safety somewhere or a backup nickel maybe, but he's not in either of those spots. Let me see what you guys are, what your reactions are in the comments. Why is Taylor's not on the depth chart? Yeah, I think I just addressed that, Sean. Sorry, I missed your comment earlier. Yeah, I'm not sure, man. I forgot to mention it when going over the running backs, but a name that I thought would be there, we're not seeing it. Not sure why. I'm assuming he's just being outperformed. And again, the fact that he wasn't eligible for so many weeks and wasn't able to practice with the team got him behind. That didn't stop Jeff Weimer and Justin Harrington, though, which makes me think a couple things. One, they're probably deeper at running back with more and better options there, to where Ty Edwards, by being behind, he probably, is still behind those guys. Whereas maybe at your wideout position and maybe at safety, not as much talent and or depth at those spots potentially, to where even though guys might be way behind, they can, as far as physical conditioning goes and things like that, they might still be able to make the depth chart. That's only thing I can, that's just a total guess on my part. Or it could just be a matter of those guys just flat out playing him. I don't know. Daniel Gigak's in the house. Thank you, Daniel. You see a badge beside Daniel's name that shows he's a paid channel member. If you want to be a paid member, you can hit the join button below. If you want to make sure your comment gets read, you can drop me a super chat. It's a way to donate to the channel, help me keep the lights on. It's also a way to make sure your comment gets addressed here during the show. We got James Green, another VIP member in the house. Daniel says, I'm not worried about the or on the roster versus Robert Morris. It's week 3 that we have to know who is playing. Bingo. Week 3, when Pitt comes to town, we need to know who the guys are, who's going to step up, and who's going to be, the really good or great players on this team that we can count on to make plays week in, week out. I was surprised, Jeremiah, to answer your question. I was surprised there were no oars on the O-line, number one. And it shows that the depth, what they went out to do in the portal. And, we heard them in the fall, in spring ball. After spring ball, they said, they needed more bodies at offensive line. They weren't happy with what they were getting, yada, yada. Well, most of the guys who were in the starting lineup, at least on the depth chart, were there in the spring. So what that tells me is they might not have been happy with where those guys were at the time, but the main thing they had to address in the winter portal window was depth. They needed more bodies in that room. As you see guys like Carson Lee, Michael Clay, guys they brought over in that second portal window are on the 2 deep. So they needed more bodies, more quality bodies, and maybe more ready bodies in that room. And they got it in the spring to complete their 2 deep. So they weren't necessarily going out to find guys who would start, but they went out to find guys who they could use for backups, because you need at least 7, 8 offensive linemen that you're comfortable with on a week in, week out basis. And I think they finally have that now. Other surprises I mentioned, no Ty Edwards, no Zay Jennings in the 2 deep. I thought he'd be there. The fact that they have Clay Ash listed on the depth chart at running back, that was kind of shocking to me. I thought we'd see either Cannon Katzer there or Ty Edwards above him, just because nothing against Clay Ash, but didn't expect to see a walk-on young man there, or former walk-on at least. But we have heard good things about him. We know he's a hard worker. I think he won the Nicolich Award for the hardest working walk-on, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a positive. We know he's talented. And, happy for that young man. He's put in the work. He's put in the time under the previous staff and the new one. He deserves that spot. So happy to see him there, but that was a surprise as well. Jeremiah says, do you think we play 3 QBs on Saturday, Nico, Jalen, and Scott? It's very possible. If the game goes as I think it will, I think we will see all 3 guys play. Heck, we might see 4 or 5 play. Who knows? Trick no good. I hope you're right. He says this team is going to surprise the nation. Tosh Miller still thinks Ty will be the short yardage guy, and it's very possible. Daniel Sargent says, don't think Ohio will be an easy game. Does Ohio beat Rutgers? Ohio is having to replace a lot of guys off their team. I think they only have 10 returning players off last year's team. If my memory serves me well, I'll obviously dig more into that game next week when I do my previews. But they are losing a lot of guys. But they were able to, and they are replacing their head coach, but they were able to keep some guys on the roster, like at key positions, like quarterback, for example. They do have the quarterback coming back, and the coach that is taking over has been on the staff. So they did keep some, and most of their assistants are coming back. So they are keeping continuity on the staff despite having a new head coach. So, a lot of it will depend on how good is he at being a head coach and how good are the players they had to plug in from the portal. But it's not going to be an easy game by any means. And, Ohio has to play 3 Power 4 teams this year in the non-conference. That team, you got to hand it to them. They are not afraid to go out. They're playing Rutgers, West Virginia, and Ohio State in the non-conference. So hats off to Ohio for the scheduling they've done, man. They are not afraid to play the big boys. Faded Scope says one thing he noticed in the depth chart, there's a strong lack of power back. No running back over 200 pounds or 6 feet tall. Yeah, and I thought we all thought Ty Edwards would fill that role, right? Not the case, at least. But again, this depth chart can change, folks. This is, again, it's Tuesday when I'm doing this show. The game's not till Saturday. A lot can change between now and then. This just might be something they're giving out to the media as a, hey, here's what we're thinking. Not saying, Neil Brown even always talked about how things can change. This depth chart is not the gospel, right? They might run people out there that aren't on this depth chart. So, and don't be surprised if that happens. But this is something that gets us all excited as fans because we want to see who's going to be playing, who's going to be running out there with that first team on Saturday. Because we've been waiting, since December, mid-December, to see this. Daniel Gigex agrees with Daniel that the Bobcats will be good. As for beating Rutgers, could happen. Yeah, I don't see it happening. I do think they'll be competitive, but I don't see them. I see them being 0-3 against the 3 Power 4 teams, but it will be interesting to see how they do. Taylor Somerville in the house says, where is our big-time transfer that came from Oregon State on defense? That's another great for pointing that out, Taylor. Another one, Olu Omatosho, also not on the depth chart. He was a late add, so maybe that was the reason. But I tell you, after what we've heard about Curtis Jones the last few weeks in various press conferences and what some of the media guys have said, that what little bit of practice they were able to watch, Curtis Jones Jr. has been impressive at practice. Another holdover from Neil Brown staff. Another recruit they brought in who was, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, he's an in-state kid as well. But they brought him in as a linebacker. They've now moved him to the bandit position, and he's looked really, really good. It's possible he's outplaying the Oregon State transfer, or at least for now. But and even that, I don't even know if Omatosho may not even be playing bandit. They might actually have him at defensive end. And if that's the case, you've got Eddie Kelly and who was the other one there? Eddie Kelly and Devin Grant. So, but both of those guys have been with the team since much earlier. Adding Omatosho so late in the process, none of the guys that were added from the portal during fall camp are on the 2 deep. And I don't think that's surprising. Tyler Jacklich is not on it. Omatosho is not on it. None of these other guys are on it. So again, I don't think that's surprising. It may take them a while to get acclimated to the playbook. It may take them a while to get acclimated to, the requirements, so to speak, of what Coach Rod wants, his culture, all that. But I would not be surprised to see him play. Speaking of Almatosho, to see him play at some point during the season. Would not be surprised whatsoever to see him play. But that is another one that's not there. Daniel Gigax says the Ohio Bobcats set a record for season tickets where Mountaineers bought a ton to see the game there. Does CJ Donaldson play much Saturday, says Daniel Sargent. I don't know. I haven't seen Ohio State's depth chart. Is he on their depth chart? I'd like to know because I haven't looked at it. Fadescope says, was I surprised at all with Jaheim White not being listed as a returner? He's shown himself as a strong returner. Not really. I preferably would not. I personally would not like to see him back there. I don't want him taking all those hits, and that might be the reason he's not. But not saying he can't do it, but not everybody's a good returner. You know what I mean? And either the other guys are better, or they just don't want him taking those hits. Because if you notice, Bowie could be a starter because he's listed as an or. But there are other guys at that position who could fill the role where he to get hurt because they're deep at that spot. And then with Preston Fox, he's a backup. So you don't want anybody to get hurt, but neither of those are going to be guys who you expect to run out with the first team, at least not to start off. He's listed as RB2 at Ohio State. Yeah, that's kind of where I thought he might be as well. Curtis D316 says the out-of-conference schedule is horrible. Won't be any nationally televised games, and it will be stuck on his. Yeah, that's a concern of mine too, Curtis. I didn't even mention that specifically in the video I did earlier today, but that is definitely a concern. West Virginia is going. Yes, they might be getting more money by getting that extra home game with that group of 6 opponent, but they're not going to get the exposure they would get, which could be worse in the long run for the university because at the end of the day, what's the university trying to do? They're trying to get more students in to their school, right? How do you do that when your games are not on national television? So, but again, maybe it was just hard to do, having to lose a game like this kind of last minute, even though they knew it was coming. Most of these teams have their schedules made years in advance. It's not that easy to find opponents. Maybe there were just no other Power 4 opponents that were able to get their schedule moved around to make it work. We don't know. So it may have been a situation where there were not a whole lot of options, and unfortunately, where Alabama is, the SEC is going to that 9th conference game. Alabama is dropping a game, and they chose to drop the West Virginia game. So, they said it was a mutual decision, but and I'm not saying West Virginia didn't want it to happen necessarily, but I'm not sure they would have done it were it not for Alabama wanting to do it as well, if that makes sense. What's up, Clint Moses? He says, I expect Ole Miss to drop the Oregon State future game. Yeah, it's going to hurt teams, Big 12, ACC. If you're not a rival of a team in the Big 10 or SEC, I'm not sure you'll be playing them much in the future. That's just the way I see it. Unless you're a big brand like a Florida State, a Clemson, a Notre Dame, I'm not sure you'll get a lot of games against Big 10 or SEC teams in the future. At least not the upper end SEC and Big 10 teams. Just my opinion. Daniel says the Backyard Brawl is an ESPN game. I think he's talking about the future non-conference schedule, Daniel. At least that's how I interpreted it. The one that came out today where they're putting Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss on the schedule. But Curtis, correct me if I'm wrong. Again, thank you for watching. If you're watching on X or Facebook, I ask that you please come over to Couz's Corner on YouTube once the show's over. Check out my previous episodes over there, previous live streams, and also be sure to subscribe. I'm on my way to 10,000. If you haven't subscribed to it yet, please do so. If you're a West Virginia Mountaineer fan, you do not want to miss it. Hit that notification bell. Make sure notifications are on your device because I'm covering West Virginia Mountaineer sports almost on a daily basis throughout the week. And then on weekends, I'll be doing post-game shows. Not for every game, but for a lot of the games, I'll be doing post-game shows. I'll be doing day-after reaction shows, all of those types of things throughout the season. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you're watching this live or on the replay. The thumbs up really shows the algorithm that, hey, I like what Couz is doing. I like his work. I like this show. Hit the like button. It pushes it out to more people. More people see my content. More people subscribe. The channel grows. It's organic. That's how it works. Subscriptions help do that too, as does comments. If you're as do comments rather. If you're leaving comments on the live show, leaving comments on the playback, it all helps. Also, want to let you guys know I am a part of or I'm partnering, I guess, with an online platform called Swivel, SWVLE. It's an online platform. It's an extension you can add to your Chrome extension, and you can actually get all of your Couz's Corner content all in one place. Go to swivel.com, SWVLE.com, look for Couz's Corner, follow me, add it to your extensions, pin it to your extensions, and then Couz's Corner will be on your home screen every time you flip open your computer or turn on your computer. It'll really help me out too. You'll have access to my YouTube videos. You'll have access to my Twitter posts. You'll have access to my TikTok uploads. You'll have access. There's a place where you can click links and go to my website, WV Sports Chat, all of that, right? So again, Swivel, SWVLE, add it to your Chrome extensions and support what I'm doing there. All right. Then Daniel Gigak says the whole UNLV team looked awful versus Idaho State on Saturday. Yeah, I didn't see the game, but yeah, I did see. Matter of fact, I hadn't even looked at the score of that game, Daniel. Now that I'm thinking about it, I watched the Kansas State Iowa State game, and then I had other things going on that I got into, but that's interesting that you say that. I would have thought that Dan Mullen would have that team, which it may take him a year or two to get what he wants there, but he was left. That program was in a good spot when he took it over, but I'm not sure how many transfers and whatnot they lost either. Daniel Sargent says it was very nice to see Emmett Matthews in Morgantown today. Was walking into the Coliseum. That's cool, Daniel. Yeah, I did see a post on X that he was back in Morgantown. I'm glad to see that. Emmett loves Morgantown. I think he comes back quite often. He might even have a home there. I'm not sure. But anyway, listen, I'm going to call it a show. I appreciate everybody hopping on. If you didn't catch it all, don't worry. It'll be uploaded to YouTube where you can watch the playback, the replay on demand. I just thought it'd be fun to get on here and go over this depth chart position by position. Again, the surprises, no Ty Edwards. Clay Ash listed in the two deep at running back with a couple other guys, including Dior Hubbard and Sincere Bowers. Obviously, Jaheim White, the starter there. All 5 quarterbacks have an Orr by their name, so no surprise there, really. Was surprised to see no Orrs on the O-line. Surprised to not see we didn't see a whole lot of Orrs on the defense. I actually think that's a good thing, but I was a little surprised by it. I thought there would be more. And then, of course, we also had no Jamoy Robinson, which that wasn't really a surprise either because he's not even eligible yet. At least we don't know. No Zay Jennings on the depth chart. I thought he would make the 2 deep. Other than that, no, not a ton of surprises, but there were a few that I thought stood out. One thing that was noteworthy, again, as a recap, a ton of upperclassmen, a lot of seniors, a lot of redshirt seniors, a lot of redshirt juniors, a whole lot of upperclassmen, especially on the offense. Does that bode well for the future? I'm not sure. They can always plug holes with the portal, but Coach Rod has said he doesn't really want to do that again like he did this year. So we'll see how that goes for the future. But right now, let's enjoy the moment. Let's enjoy today. Let's enjoy the fact that we have a depth chart. And the anticipation continues. Who will run out as a quarterback when the game starts and West Virginia gets their first possession of the game? Who runs out to take that first snap? Will it be Nico? Will it be Jalen Henderson? Will it be Max Brown? Could it be one of the freshmen? We will see, but I'm going to be tuned in to find out. What's up, Bob Swanger? Thank you for joining, my brother. I hope Curtis says he hopes they get Robinson's situation straightened out. I do too, because we could really use that guy to rush the quarterback. But anyway, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you for watching. So thanks for supporting the show. Hope the rest of your night or day is top shelf. Q Country Roads.